The length of time since the last time Purdue beat Wisconsin is about as long as some Western Indiana country miles. But is this the year? Is this the opportunity needed for the Boilermakers to finally break the streak against the Badgers?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
We talk about it every year when we talk about this game. Wisconsin now 16 consecutive victories over the Purdue Boilermakers. And what kind of makes that streak even more impressive is that they have played each and every single year because they've both been in the West Division since 2014. The Badgers have owned this series over Purdue. When I was kind of researching this streak specifically, I found some substats underneath just the 16 number that really stood out to me as well. Throughout the 16-game win streak for Wisconsin, there have only been 3 games that have been separated by 8 points or less. Just 3 one-score games throughout this whole deal. The Badgers have outscored Purdue 568 to 251 during this streak. That's more than a 300-point differential between the Badgers and the Boilermakers. Now, a lot of the lopsided victories came, during the late 2000s, early 2010s, when Brett Bielema and Wisconsin were at a high and Purdue, well, not so much. They were kind of a little bit low at that point. But these are brand new teams. Both schools have new head coaches. Luke Fickell for Wisconsin, Ryan Walters for Purdue. So brand new teams this season, and maybe for Purdue, a brand new opportunity to maybe start a streak of their own here against Wisconsin. Now, when we talk about this rivalry and we talk about this game each and every single year, I think the first thing we got to talk about, and that's what we're going to talk about right now in this preview, how can Purdue beat Wisconsin? How can Purdue get off the schneid, and how can they start a win streak here against the Wisconsin Badgers? For me, sell out on the run. Wisconsin is best when they are running the football. I believe their best players, offense, defense, special teams, are the top 2 players on their numerical roster. Number 0, Braelon Allen, and number 1, Chez Mellusi. When that run game is going, good things happen. When balance is achieved on Wisconsin, good things happen. You saw what happened when balance isn't achieved against Washington State. Sure, Tanner Mordecai got you back in the football game. I just don't know if this passing game is prolific enough. I don't know if the receivers on the outside are good enough to continuously create separation in order for this passing game to really go off where they can rush for under 100 yards in a game and still throw the ball a lot and lead and get to victory that way. Now, they are going to have a good opportunity against the Purdue secondary that is towards the bottom of the Big Ten. We're going to be talking about these defenses in just a little bit. But for Purdue, you got to sell out on the run, and you got some players back there that can sit in the weeds and lie in the weeds and get ready to strike. Cam Allen and Dylan Thieneman both have 2 interceptions last year, and don't forget Sanusi Kane. Even though Purdue has allowed a lot of yardage through the air this season, there are guys back there that can take the football away. And one thing I think that we've seen throughout time, even in this early period for Tanner Mordecai at Wisconsin, is he can be prone to maybe throw the ball to the other squad, throw it to the other colored jerseys, and that's what Purdue has to do. They need to get Wisconsin into situations, 3rd and long, where they can get Tanner Mordecai forcing the ball into a window that he shouldn't be forcing himself into. When the run game isn't there, the sticks back up, and it's longer yardage situations to get to the first down marker. That's, I think, the key for Purdue into slowing down Wisconsin. You saw it against Washington State. Washington State did a really good job at scheming up a victory against Wisconsin. And Purdue needs to try to replicate that. Watch that film. Watch that film that the Cougars had against the Badgers and try to replicate some of those concepts that Washington State had on the defensive side of the football. So I mentioned defenses. These are the bottom 2 defenses in the Big Ten through 3 games in pass defense. There are going to be yards. there are going to be points to be had through the air. And you got two good quarterbacks, Tanner Mordecai, we mentioned him already for Wisconsin, and of course Hudson Card for Purdue. And there's good talent on the perimeter for both teams. Are we going to see a Friday night shootout in West Lafayette? I think there's a good chance that we could see that. There's a good chance. There was 47-44, I think, a handful of years down the road between these two teams. I don't know if we're going to see that type of offensive output in this game, but if I'm an offensive coordinator, if I'm Phil Longo, or if I'm Graham Harrell in this game, and I want to throw the football, and I think both of these offensive coordinators, at their heart of hearts, want to throw the football, I'm licking my chops saying it's going to be a good night. It's going to be a good night, baby, throwing the ball against these secondaries. Like, you look at Wisconsin, they have faced 85 pass attempts the last 2 weeks. They've allowed 591 yards against Washington State and Georgia Southern. Now, these aren't teams philosophy-wise in the Cougars and the Eagles that, well, they don't exactly line up in the I formation and run the football down your throat. They throw the ball around the yard. And we've found out the last couple of weeks, even though Georgia Southern only scored 14 points, there were plays, big chunk plays in the first half where there was maybe a breakdown in coverage in the second half where Georgia Southern was able to get big chunks of yardage against this Wisconsin defense. Now, there were 5 interceptions. I don't want to leave that out, but that's a lot more due to, I think, Georgia Southern throwing up ducks. And Wisconsin, yes, you got to be in the right position, of course, to make those plays. And credit to them, Hunter Wohler and others for making those plays. But you got to think Purdue is not gonna throw those kinds of balls. Is not gonna get in those types of situations here against Wisconsin. At least the Boilermakers, they're hoping that they certainly don't get in these types of situations. So I think we're going to see a lot of passing. I think we're going to see a lot of yards. I think we're going to see a lot of points. Let's talk about Purdue offensively and how they kind of approach this as well. Wisconsin, at least so far, has been better against the run, but I think that kind of goes back to what I just said about facing those 85 pass attempts the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, you've faced off against teams that don't really like to run the football. So what does Purdue do? I still think Purdue's path to success is through the air in this game, because you've seen in short yardage situations for the Boilermakers so far this season is that they aren't as successful at just running the football up the middle. And I still think you need to sprinkle in some run game, but the run game against Wisconsin needs to be a little bit of a compliment. Like, you look at games against Fresno State and against Syracuse where they continuously got stopped on 3rd and short, where they got stopped on 4th and short. You look at Wisconsin, what they have at linebacker with Muma Jungmeta and Jordan Turner and the like those are guys that are probably better than were at Fresno State, at Syracuse. So I don't know if running the ball up the middle is going to be the best course of action in terms of the run game for Purdue. I think you need to get going outside the tackles a little bit more. You need to try to get to the outside. You need to try to get to the perimeter in this game. I think that's where the run game has kind of worked best for the Boilermakers this season, when you get guys, especially a Tyrone Tracy outside the tackles. Devin Mockabee. I just don't know if you can beat Wisconsin and Devin Mockabee runs for something like 60 or 70 yards. I mean, maybe you can, but I just don't see it. Just like Wisconsin needs balance, I still think Purdue needs a little bit of balance as well. And they need to try to find a way to get Devin Mockabee in this run game going a little bit. We know they've been banged up on the interior of the offensive line. So get going to the outside. Get some quarterback read plays where Hudson Card can pull it and keep it himself. We know we've got some bounce in his step. We know that he can run a little bit. That's, I think, where Purdue needs to focus in on this run game. You get to a 3rd and short, I honestly believe a wide receiver screen play or some short yardage passing concept is almost a better situation than just running the football up the middle. I think that's one thing that we've seen here over the past few weeks. I'm really excited about this game. For Purdue, a loss will really set them back, right? I had them going 6-6 in the preseason, and that 6-6 was a 3-0 start. They're off to a 1-2 start. Assuming that we can safely assume that they don't get it done against Ohio State and Michigan on their schedule, and then if they don't get it done against Wisconsin, they would have to go 5-1 the rest of the way against the remaining West Division teams plus Indiana to get to a bowl game. And I think that is a tall task right now, especially what you're seeing out of the defensive side of the ball right now for Purdue. This is a big game if they want to get to bowl eligibility for the Boilermakers. I'm excited about this one. I think this game can go either way. I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to see it thrown all around the yard. Pass game is going to be who throws the football better. That might be who ends up winning the football game. I want to know your thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Who you think is coming out on top in this Friday night showdown at Ross 8. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.